My name is Heather Alexandra, and today we're going to talk about how The Last Guardian is really cool, and it has bird dogs and awesome stuff, and relationships. We're going to talk about relationships. Figuring out exactly how The Last Guardian forms a connection between the player and its giant bird dog, Trico, can be a tricky proposition. In many ways, the game isn't using specifically unique or revolutionary design philosophies or techniques to communicate the growing connection between the boy and his monster friend. Intermingling levels of vulnerability shift from one party to the other, allowing them to come to each other's aid whenever needed. This builds up gratitude in the player and establishes important rules that can be broken later for dramatic effect. Instead of breaking down the mechanical facets at the core of this relationship, though, I think it's actually better if we understand just how much of it is based upon the space between the two characters, and I mean the actual literal space. How close they are to each other, how far apart they are from each other. As scenarios change, the space between parties sort of shrinks and grows in order to stress which character is on top in the power dynamics of the relationship. To explain this, we only need to start at the beginning. The boy and Trico are caught inside of a cave. The boy can't exit the cave by themselves, but they also can't approach Trico. Physical intimacy and contact is this really important facet in all of Fumito Ueda's games. In Ico, the relationship between Yorda and Ico is predicated almost entirely on their continued physical contact. You sort of take her hand and guide her around, and that builds a relationship. And this is repeated in Shadow of the Colossus when the player builds a strong connection to their horse Agro through constant contact, moving through the land, riding on the horse. And the game actually takes this a step further by using the physical contact between Wander and the various colossi that he scales in order to stress the beast's grandeur and majesty. For Ueda, space communicates everything, and the inability to enter into Trico's personal space provides a contrast for what will follow in the rest of the relationship. In order to gain Trico's trust, we first need to move far away to gather barrels that we can use to feed him. It's a bit of risk-reward. The more we expose ourselves to potential dangers by moving away from Trico, the stronger the relationship becomes. This actually becomes a recurring theme in our interactions with Trico. To communicate the budding trust, though, we're actually able to make physical contact after this, but we're always knocked away. The bond between Trico and the boy hasn't completely formed yet. The contract is kind of incomplete. And crucially, when this bond is broken, we actually lose control of our character for a little bit. We're knocked unconscious and sent into a cutscene. The start of the relationship with Trico comes when we're finally allowed to climb freely on him. Anytime we grab hold on Trico, we relinquish some of our own control. He moves freely, and we can only climb around his body. Additionally, breaking the initial spatial relationship establishes trust. We weren't able to touch Trico before, and now we can. And that trust becomes incredibly important. The boy can go into small spaces that Trico can't, and Trico can traverse large gaps that the boy can't leap. Giving the two characters unique relationships with their spaces creates a strong interdependency between the two. The world cannot be navigated by one party alone. For instance, the boy can open gates that Trico can't break through, and Trico can be made to blow up debris with his super cool lightning tail that the boy can't push to the side. They need each other. These obstacles are defined entirely by the space they create, and how they force the two characters to continually keep in close proximity and contact. A really good example of using space to strong effect comes right early on. Trico is afraid of water, and we need to coax him down from this position. In order to achieve this, the boy needs to venture away from Trico and recover more food barrels in order to encourage him to jump into the water. It's a repeat of the same spatial rules that built the initial trust relationship. The more the boy is willing to press forward for Trico's benefit, the more trust the two of them build, and this trust is communicated when Trico leaps into the water. Following this, the single best use of this technique of using space to communicate the growing bond between the boy and Trico comes when we first encounter the Guardian statues. This is early on, not really spoilers, I'm just going to walk us through the path here. This is the scenario. First, we have to break away from Trico in order to lower a gate. We're able to gain access to the outside wall by climbing up him. So this establishes an initial physical exchange that we break when we climb outside. It establishes an initial point of trust and connection that we willingly relinquish in order to accomplish our goal. When we return inside, we're close to each other, but we're blocked from Trico because of this gate, and that visually expresses the anxiety of separation. These are two characters that need each other, and when they're separated, things feel incomplete. The gate can be removed, allowing them to move closer together again, and we can also feed Trico another barrel, either as a gesture of continued trust building, or as a sort of miniature celebration at our reunion. Moving forward, Trico is stopped by a device down below, and leaping down leaves us completely unable to proceed. We can't climb back up to Trico, can't move past this locked gate, and we can't climb up to where the switch is. The only interaction that we have is to call him down to us. Much like the water, asking Trico to enter a space where they're uncomfortable is a huge gesture of faith. But unlike the moment with the water, we don't even need to coax him down with barrels. The relationship, even though this is early on in the game, has already developed to a point where that sort of incentive isn't required at all. However, entering into this space tosses Trico into a frenzy. The device sort of resonates and causes him to panic. And the trust relationship is broken again when Trico attacks the boy. Space is entered without consent. He sort of moves closer to us, and he removes control from the player when he swallows us and we're thrown into another cutscene. After this, we have a formal repetition of the start of the game, where Trico is stationary and the boy needs to venture away. But this time, the stakes have been raised. This is the first time we encounter the Stone Guardians. They remind me of Legend of the Hidden Temple guards. They pop up, and if they grab you, the boy can't fight against them, and there's no real space for us to flee from them either. We have to return to Trico, who, in spite of the recent violation of the spatial relationship, restores that trust by destroying the Guardians. After this, the relationship is resumed and close contact can be repeated when the boy has to climb up Trico and pet him in order to calm him down after the battle. Once calm, the relationship is resumed and the pair can proceed. This is just one of the many crucibles that we can analyze, but the important thing is that the bond between the two characters is continually expressed through their player relationship and their spatial relationship. The Last Guardian employs many tricks to build up and examine this theme of trust, but close examinations of moments like this make two things incredibly clear. The first is that the trust is largely expressed through physical proximity. Distance communicates anxiety, closeness conveys confidence and trust. But the second and most